Hello guys, welcome to the fifth part of React Redux series. In this video, we are going to discuss the synchronous actions, middlewares, and many more things. So let's get started. First, we'll discuss about asynchronous actions. In previous videos, we have seen to dispatch actions, we need an object, and that is our synchronous ones. Means these are objects like or key value like structures. But if there is a case we need to pass some functions through dispatch, or we need to dispatch some functions, then there will be no native implementation in Redux for it. As a way for this, we can implement three actions, separate actions for a single asynchronous function. And this flow is called managing asynchronous actions in Redux. As we know, in any asynchronous function, there will be two states. Like either that function will be success or it will be failed. And we need to update our component that it will be either success or fail. So we will take three actions for a single asynchronous function. One action will be dispatched before the calling of that function, and another action will be dispatched after the success of that call, and another function will be dispatched or action will be dispatched after the failure of that call. Okay, now here is a simple example on managing asynchronous functions or actions in Redux. You can see here we have three constants, and here I have written three actions, and this is an example I have taken from the official Redux documentation. Okay, now and this function, this fetch post function, is a function in our component that manages the asynchronous function. Okay, that is the fetch function, means we are calling an API which is an asynchronous function obviously. Now what we are doing, before calling this fetch, we are dispatching an action request post, and this request first for informing our reducer that now this function is getting called. After the success of this fetch, we are returning. After the success of this fetch request, we are dispatching another action with a result. If it is get failed, then in catch statement, we will dispatch another action mentioning our error. Now in this function, it is an occurring function, means this function is returning another function and that function is returning another function, means this fetch post is a function which is returning a function with dispatch. Now this dispatch function is returning another asynchronous function on which we are dispatching the success or failure of this request. Now if we'll write separate three actions for each asynchronous functions, then there will be a lot of garbage functions, garbage codes in our application. To avoid this type of problems, we will use middlewares. What middleware does, it just sits between your action and your reducer. If you will dispatch some function from your component or store, then that function is captured or received by the middleware. Then middleware will execute that function, and the result, which is an object, which is an synchronous ones, will be dispatched to the reducer. Now what it does, you are dispatching some function from your component. It will be received by the middleware. The middleware will execute that asynchronous function, and the result of the asynchronous function, either it will be resolved or reject, will be dispatched to the reducer. Now this middleware can be changed of any number of members. Middlewares can be one or two or three or anything, so that we can pass results from one middleware to next middleware and so on, and the last middleware will pass the result to the reducer. Now this is an example. The first example here, the first example is without using middlewares. This second is with middlewares. Now you can see we are dispatching a request post, uh, then we are returning an asynchronous function. Then after success of that asynchronous function, we are dispatching an another receive post. And if there is an error, then in catch block we will dispatch that error. But if you use middlewares, we have to just write dispatch and then this fetch function, so that this fetch function, this asynchronous function, is get passed to our middleware, and middleware will resolve that function and send our action or dispatch that action to the reducer. And by this we don't have to write same code again and again for the same asynchronous functions. We'll just dispatch our asynchronous function from our component, then middleware will handle everything after that. Now what a middleware looks like. What is a middleware? Now these middlewares are the currying functions. If you don't know what this currying function is, you can comment below. I will make another video on it. But for now, currying functions are a one type of function in JavaScript that will return functions instead of object. In a normal function, what you have seen that a function will return an object. But in the currying function, one function will return another function, and that function will return another function, and like this. Now I have written in this arrow function. Now what is this means? This means this middleware will receive a store. Then after receiving store, it will return another function which will receive the next as argument, and that function will receives an action, and this will return or dispatch an action to a reducer. Within this you can see I have written three statements: before state and after state. This is our previous state, means initial state we can set. Then we are passing next, then within either action. You can simply understand that if you write next within that anything, then that object or that function will pass to the next middleware or reducer. Okay, before the next, you will execute that function logic or asynchronous function logic. After getting result from that asynchronous function, you will just pass that result within the next, so that it can go to the reducer, or if there is a multiple middlewares, then it will go to the next middleware. Okay, so then after the next, Then action, this action object will be updated in reducer, and after that we can get our updated state from store. Okay, if you want to build your own middlewares, then this is the method by which you can build any type of middlewares. This is an template. There is no other method for middlewares, but in open source we have many defined middlewares like Redux Strong, Redux Saga. We will check it out in our next videos. So how we can apply those middlewares in our application? We have seen that we have a store folder, and within the store folder we have a store object, the store.js. Within this we have imported the create store to create our store in our Redux. To apply middleware, we will retrieve two more methods from Redux. That is, one is our compose and another is apply middleware. Now these middlewares are a promise, or are an array of middlewares. Means you can write n number of middlewares as a array, and you can know that this create store method will create our store. It receives an reducer. Then if we have any middleware, then we'll pass a second argument to that. And this compose method, what it does, it pass the results from one function to next function. Means if we have, you can see there is a thunk middleware and a promise middleware. What this compose method do is the result of this thunk middleware is passed as argument to this promise middleware. If there will be another middleware, then the result of this promise middleware will be passed to the next middleware, and the last middleware will pass the result to the reducer, and this apply middleware is responsible for that, to pass the result from middlewares to the reducer. Now this is a simple example of Redux. I hope you all have understood this. If there will be any difficulties to understand this concept, you can comment below. In next video we will see the practical implementation of this concept so that you can understand it better. And if you like this video, please subscribe it or like this. Thank you.